This week, we're looking at a stack of sources that, on the surface, seem to be about a very specific topic,
Right.
teaching Maori culture to children aged, 2 to 6. But the deeper I got into it, the more I realized we aren't really just talking about New Zealand.
No.
This feels more like a case study in how human beings actually learn about the world.
It really is a case study, and it's a challenging one because it asks us to, well, to completely rethink how we introduce new cultures to young kids.
Hmm.
If you look past the specific geography of Aotearoa, that's New Zealand, what we're really looking at is a blueprint for cultural learning that moves away from the lecture hall.
And into the sandbox.
Exactly,
Yeah.
into the sandbox.
Which is good because I don't know many 3-year-olds who enjoy lectures, but I think for a lot of parents, there is this tension.
Uh-huh.
You want your kid to be a global citizen, you want them to respect other cultures, but you also have this fear of doing it wrong.
Of course.
You don't want to be disrespectful. So you end up falling into what the research here calls the tourist approach.
The tourist approach is the default setting for most educational systems, unfortunately.
What is that exactly?
It's when you treat a culture like a costume or a theme party. It's Tuesday, so we're going to eat a taco and wear a sombrero. And then on Wednesday,
It's back to normal.
we go back to normal.
Yeah.
It's checking a box. And the sources we're analyzing today, they'd argue that for a child between 2 and 6, that approach is actually counterproductive.
How so?
It highlights difference in a really surface-level way that can lead to othering. Instead, the philosophy here is that at this age, culture isn't something you teach.
Right.
It's something you experience.
Okay, so let's get into the specifics. We've got a list of play-based activities here: art, movement, nature, food. But before we get to the fun stuff, we need to understand the brain of the audience.
Yes.
Because the research is pretty blunt. A 4-year-old is not a mini historian.
They are not. Developmentally, children in this age bracket, we're talking roughly 2 to 6, they're concrete thinkers.
What does that mean in simple terms?
It means they understand their immediate reality. They understand my shoe, my snack, my friend. They just don't have the cognitive hardware to process abstract concepts like colonization or political treaties or historical grievances.
So if I try to sit my toddler down and explain the Treaty of Waitangi, which is, the founding document of New Zealand,
Yeah.
I'm essentially wasting my breath.
You're likely just confusing them. The sources really emphasize that if you try to teach facts and dates to this age group, you're not teaching culture. You're just making noise.
So what's the goal then?
The goal isn't knowledge acquisition, not in the academic sense. The goal is familiarity. The literature distinguishes between teaching facts, which is ineffective, and modeling values, which is highly effective.
And in the context of Maori culture, what are those values?
The notes highlight 3 pillars that act as anchors for all the activities we'll discuss. There's Wanao.
Which is family and connection.
Exactly. Then Wenua, which means the land, and Aroha, which implies love, compassion, or empathy.
Wanao, Wenua, Aro.
Right. And the argument is you don't lecture a child on Aroha. You create an environment where Aroha is the necessary action to complete a game.
Let's see how that actually works. I want to start with the visual arts. The activity here is called pattern play, and it focuses on the koru. For those listening who might not have seen one, can you describe it?
A koru is a spiral shape. It's based on the unfurling frond of a silver fern. It is absolutely iconic in Maori art.
And the adult instinct, I imagine, is to explain what it means.
That's the teacher instinct, yes. You show the child the spiral and explain its symbolic meaning. New life, growth, peace.
Which sounds like a nice lesson.
It is a nice lesson for a 10-year-old. For a 3-year-old, it's just abstract.
Yeah.
The better approach, according to these sources, is to focus on visual literacy.
Meaning?
You show the child examples of Maori carvings or tomoko, the traditional facial tattoos, and you just ask a simple question. What do you see?
That seems almost too simple. What do you see?
It's deceptively simple. You're training observation. The child might say, I see curves, or I see lines that go round and round. Then you invite them to create their own spirals.
With paint or?
Maybe paint, maybe drawing in the sand, or arranging actual fern fronds on a light table. They're engaging with the aesthetic of the culture, but without the history lesson.
Okay, but isn't there a risk there? I mean, tomoko, those facial tattoos, they have really deep meanings. They represent ancestry and status.
They do.
So if we just let kids draw squiggles, are we trivializing that?
That is a very valid concern, and the sources address it explicitly. This is where a concept called wakapapa comes in.
Okay.
Wakapapa loosely translates to genealogy, or the layers of ancestry that bring us to now. A real tamoko contains that person's waka papa. It's a sacred map of who they are.
Right, so it's not just a cool design.
Not at all. But a 4-year-old cannot grasp ancestry layers. So the ethical line the experts draw is this. You do not ask the child to design a tattoo. You don't explain the specific lineage of a chief.
So what do you do instead?
You generalize the concept. You say something like, some people wear their stories on their bodies.
Some people wear their stories on their bodies. I like that.
It's profound, but it's accessible. You explain that stories can be painted or carved into wood or worn on skin. That teaches the child that, visuals can be language.
So it validates the art form without appropriating the sacred content.
Exactly. You're building the scaffold. The deep understanding can come years later, but the familiarity starts now.
Let's move from the eyes to the whole body. Let's talk about the haka. I think most people have seen the haka, probably from the All Blacks rugby team.
Yeah.
It's intense. There's foot stomping, chest beating, loud chanting.
It's an incredibly powerful display of cultural pride.
And naturally, if you show a video of that to a group of 5-year-olds, their immediate reaction is going to be to start screaming and stomping.
Which is exactly where the wheels can fall off. The source material is very, very firm on this point.
Which is?
Observation is more appropriate than imitation.
Why? Usually we tell kids to learn by doing. Copy me.
Well, in this specific cultural context, and frankly in many indigenous contexts, mimicry without understanding. It can quickly turn into caricature.
Oh.
If you have a room full of kids just pulling silly faces and yelling gibberish, that isn't respect. That's mockery, even if it's unintentional.
Okay, so how do you harness that energy? Because the kids are going to want to move.
You break it down.
Yeah.
You break it into its components. The activity suggested is a body percussion game.
So what does that look like?
You get the kids to stomp a rhythm, then clap a rhythm, then tap their chest, then freeze. You're working on proprioception, knowing where your body is in space, and emotional regulation.
You're teaching them to control the energy.
They're teaching that the body is an instrument. Then, once they've played with those sounds, you watch a video of a real haka performance, and you frame it. You say, look at how they use their bodies to tell a story. Look how strong they are.
That reframes it completely. It goes from scary war dance to passionate storytelling.
It becomes a sort of equation. Voice plus body plus rhythm equals story. The child learns that you can express big feelings, anger, pride, joy physically.
And that's a huge lesson in emotional literacy.
It is, and it's delivered through a cultural lens, but without the kids awkwardly trying to perform a ceremony, they don't have the right to perform.
That seems like a really useful distinction for parents. Appreciate the performance without needing to replicate it.
It protects the culture, and it protects the child from being put in a position of disrespect.
Okay, let's shift to the environment. There's a section here on land care, or kaitiakitanga. Now that is a big word for a toddler.
It is. Kaitiakitanga essentially means guardianship or stewardship. It's the worldview that we don't own the earth, we belong to it.
And our job is to protect it.
That's the idea.
Again, philosophically beautiful, but if I tell my kid, we are the guardians of the earth, he's probably just going to ask for a juice box. How do you make that concrete?
You use what's called schema play. Children love to transport things and hide things and fix things. The activity here is the land and sea sensory bin.
For those of us who don't speak preschool, teacher, what's a sensory bin?
It's just a container, a plastic tub filled with tactile stuff.
Yeah.
Sand, water, leaves, smooth stones. You create a miniature landscape.
Okay.
But here's the specific cultural twist. You add a little figure of a kiwi bird.
Why a kiwi? I mean, aside from being the national symbol.
Well, think about the biology of a kiwi. It's flightless. It lives on the forest floor. It is inherently vulnerable. If you put an eagle in the bin, the eagle can fly away.
But the kiwi can't. It needs help.
It triggers that nurturing instinct. The activity suggests putting the kiwi in the bin, but also adding unsafe elements. Little pieces of plastic rubbish, bottle caps, maybe a tangled net.
So the game isn't just play with the bird. The game is save the bird.
The game is care. You ask, is this safe for the kiwi? The child will naturally want to remove the rubbish. They'll want to build a shelter with the leaves. They are physically enacting kaitiakitanga.
They aren't hearing a lecture on Tolution. They are feeling the satisfaction of fixing something.
That's it. And this connects to a really fascinating linguistic point in the sources. The Māori word wenua means land, but it also has a second meaning.
Which is?
Placenta.
Oh, wow. That is a very direct connection.
It's profound, isn't it? The land nourishes us just as the placenta nourishes the unborn child. We're biologically tied to it. Now, you're not going to explain the biology of the placenta to a 3-year-old.
Please don't.
No. But by having them physically care for the land in the bin, you are planting the seed of that relationship. You're showing them that the land is a family member that needs our care.
That leads really well into the next activity, which is about food. But this isn't just about eating. The concept is shared kai.
Right, kai is the word for food. But you're right, the lesson isn't nutrition. It's about the boil-up.
Okay, you need to explain a boil-up, because depending on where you are in the world, that might sound unappealing.
Fair point. A boil-up is a traditional Maori meal. It's a large communal pot, usually, filled with pork bones, potatoes, kumara sweet potatoes, pumpkin, and watercress or doughboys.
So, comfort food.
It's comfort food, but more importantly, it's food meant to feed a crowd.
And the activity is to make this. Because I have to be honest, having my 4-year-old help me chop pumpkins or handle raw pork sounds like a nightmare.
It would be. And it would take 3 times as long and be 5 times as messy.
So why do it?
Because you're absolutely right. It is inefficient. But efficiency is a Western industrial value. It's not the value we are teaching here. The value is one-hour contribution to the group.
So the mess is part of the point.
The participation is the point. The activity suggests giving the child a job they can actually do. Scrubbing the potatoes, washing the watercress in a bowl, peeling corn.
Right. It's bringing what they do at home into the learning space.
Exactly. When a child helps prepare the meal, the food tastes different to them. They have ownership of it. And in Maori culture, providing kai is an act of manakitanga, of hospitality and care.
So by letting them wash the potato...
You're telling them you are capable of caring for this family. You're a useful member of the village. And this is the perfect time to introduce the language naturally. You don't use flashcards. You just say, pass the kai, or that shows big aroho, and they share. Language is a tool, not a test.
I want to zoom out for a second. We've looked at art, haka, land, and food. If I'm a parent listening, and I do the sensory bin on a Tuesday... Am I done? Have I done Maori culture?
That is the one-and-done trap.
Yeah.
And it's what we want to avoid. The sources talk about a spiral curriculum.
A spiral.
Think of a spiral staircase. You come back to the same point, but at a higher level each time. You don't just do Maori week and then forget about it.
So you revisit things.
Exactly. You introduce the koru patterns in March. Then in June, when you're at the beach, you look for spirals in the shells. In October, you notice spirals in the fern fronds.
You keep circling back to the same values, observation, care, family, but in different contexts.
That is how it becomes normalized. If you only do it once a year, it's a novelty. It's a weird thing we did that one time. If you weave it into the fabric of the year, it just becomes life.
And I suppose that takes the pressure off the parent to be an expert. You don't have to give a dissertation on it. You just have to be willing to notice things repeatedly.
The quote from the source that really stuck with me is this: what matters isn't the activity itself, it's what children are invited to notice and do.
The activity is just a vessel for the value.
It's the vessel, yes.
So let's widen the aperture here. We've been talking about New Zealand and Maori culture, but we have listeners in London, in Chicago, in Tokyo. Does this framework apply if I'm trying to teach my kid about, say, Swedish culture?
It applies 100%. The specific content changes, but the cognitive mechanism is universal. If you want to introduce Japanese culture, don't just put them in a kimono and take a photo.
That's the tourist approach again.
It is. Instead, look for the values. Maybe it's about precision and placement. So you do flower arranging or simple origami. Ask, what do you see? Maybe it's about nature. So you explore a garden with that specific lens.
Maybe it's about food preparation.
Yeah.
The specific way rice is washed or tea is served.
Exactly. Find the action that embodies the value. Let the child do the action. That is how you build a connection that isn't based on stereotypes.
It seems like we often overcomplicate this because we're so afraid of offending. We treat culture like this fragile glass vase that we can't touch.
And that anxiety creates distance.
Yeah.
Kids pick up on that. If you are tense about a culture, they learn that the culture is scary or too hard.
But if we strip it back to these basics, families eat, people create art, we move our bodies, we take care of our place, it becomes relatable.
It becomes human.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the final, maybe provocative thought I'd like to leave people with.
Okay.
We often try to teach respect as this abstract, serious duty. You must respect others.
Which usually sounds like, eat your vegetables.
Right. But the sources here suggest that respect isn't something you teach directly. Respect is a byproduct.
A byproduct of what?
Familiarity. Respect happens when you've washed the potatoes together. It happens when you've noticed the beautiful curve of the fern.
Hmm.
It happens when you've quieted your body to listen to the rhythm.
Hmm.
When a child sees that another culture does the same human things they do,
Mm-hmm.
just in a different style, they don't see another. They see us.
That's a powerful place to land. It's not about the history book, it's about the shared experience.
That's the foundation. The history books can come later.
So here's the challenge for you listening, wherever you are. Try one noticing activity this week. It doesn't have to be a Maori culture. It could be the culture of your neighbor or your own heritage. But instead of explaining, just ask your child, what do you see? You might be surprised by what they show you.
Kia ora.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.